On Bastille Day, Tadej Pogacar brought the fireworks and had a front row seat to his own spectacle. A third stage win for Pogacar at this Tour de France, and crucially a huge blow to Jonas Vingegaard in the battle for the general classification. That was quite simply magnificent by Pogacar, wasn't it, Jonathan?
It's an incredibly strong ride. He played the day very, very cool. I mean, obviously Visma tried to take it to him, and it did not work, and it backfired on them. And Tadej is looking to be very, very dominant.
We are going to hear a lot of people saying the Tour de France is done and dusted. That's it. The GC is wrapped up. We've got 6 stages to go. Robbie, what do you say to that?
It's almost, it's almost wrapped up, but it's still only 3 minutes and 9 seconds. That's not a huge race over gap. It's a really commanding lead. But if something happens, if he has a terrible day, blows up, crash mechanical, gets sick, then 3 minutes can be wiped away really quickly. But it is a big blow to Jonas Vingegaard. They went the all or nothing. We sometimes say to win a race, you've got to risk losing it, and they did that, and it looks like they've lost it, and that's pretty much everything he had. But Tadej's still got to get there and defend himself. And
there are still 3 crucial GC stages at the end of next week. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we just saw Jonas there crossing the line with his head hung. Could he have done anything differently today, Danny? Because it didn't work, but you've got to suspect that maybe that was their best case scenario as an option.
I think before that final climb, they could have done something different. I think they could have ridden more conservatively as a team.
Are we saying that in hindsight, though?
No, I don't think so at this stage, because we talked about the climb suiting him more versus Tadej being steeper. And I think on that final climb, maybe he went a bit early, but ultimately, he just didn't have the legs versus Tadej in that regard. He didn't make a big explosive effort. He didn't put himself in the red. He rode on that line, that horrendous line of that capacity, which is so hard to do. But that was his best opportunity to try and take time on Tadej, and he just didn't have it. And going back to where he's come from, 12 weeks ago, a huge injury to the man that we have to talk about, because I think that is now what we are seeing here. He just doesn't have that real base where he missed so many weeks of training.
We were having a debate as we were watching this as Tadej Pogacar powered up this climb as to whether or not Visma Lease bike would have been better, Adam, leaving it for today, allowing the break to go, minimising losses and then coming out hard after the rest day. Even team bosses are reduced to being armchair DSs on a day like today, Jonathan, and it's easy, I think, for us all to say what we think should have happened when it's already happened. But what do you think that they should have...
Exactly right. Like, there's nothing more they can do. He's beaten by a stronger man on the day. It doesn't matter if they waited till the last climb. It doesn't matter if they started on the first climb of the day. Tadej is stronger. That's black and white. We can see it over and over and over again. They have to try. And like Robbie said, it's an all or nothing. And they did the right thing. That day when Jonas beat Tadej, they played it perfectly. You know, Jonas didn't respond to him immediately, was able to bring him back, and that's where they saw his weakness, in that he was fatigued later on in the stage after going hard for a long time. That's when he was fatigued. So for me, that's what they tried to play on today. Go hard from a long way out, push it, and hopefully Tadej will crack. And I said just before Tadej attacked, I said, if he goes now, that's it, it's done. I didn't think he was going to, because I didn't think he'd have the legs. And Jonas was maybe thinking it, but probably not hoping it. And it happened, and he's just beaten by, ultimately, a stronger man on the day.
Stronger guy. And you could say that Jonas could have maybe identified a little bit earlier, like, I'm not getting him in trouble, I'm not going to drop him, and then sort of ease off and at least try and minimise the time loss, or at least stick in his wheel. But that's not riding all or nothing. And I think they've just clearly decided we're going to try to win it, or we're going to blow up trying, and it was blow up. And that's probably a more reasonable expectation to have than expecting Jonas just to keep getting better throughout this race and ride his way into incredible form off the back of what's happened to him early this year.
Maybe. I mean, again, looking in hindsight, you could say, well, if Visma had ridden much more conservatively today and tried to just protect all the resources and see if they could get Jonas just to the line with Tadej, right, with no time loss, maybe a little bit on the bonus, and then say, okay, and then the rest day comes and we're going to get a flat day in there, and in that period, that'll be where finally sort of the base building of Jonas coming back from his injury will finally hit, and he'll be really good in the last couple of days of the race, and that's where we could win it. Okay, that didn't happen, but if you were to look at it from the contrary point of view, it'd be like, well, hold on, why did you throw it all in the line? If it's this whole thing of like, he's going to get better and better, Jonas is getting better through the race, and that's the whole, then why did you blow it out today as opposed to waiting for the bitter end?
I guess because the other alternative to that is he comes back fighting, he manages to get some sort of a psychological blow, maybe a stage win once again over Tadej Pogacar, going into the rest day then with a huge amount of momentum and planting those doubts in Tadej Pogacar's head and that of UAE Team Emirates.
I also think one of the hardest bits is for Jonas, especially if he'd have waited on Tadej today, they got to the final 4K. That's when Tadej's Tadej.
Oh yeah,
and that's
he would still take time.
Exactly. So it's like, what can he really do? Like, if we really look at it, use his team better. He doesn't have the team for the mountains. Let's face it. He's got Jorgensen, but that's about it when you get deep into them. So there's really so limited to what he can do against Tadej Pogacar. Everyone is. He's the best in the world by far.
They can still think outside the box, and after the rest day, we're going to Nîmes. Even when it's not very windy around there, it's still windy. There's enough to split a peloton. Which they've now given themselves a pretty big deficit, but that is another option. They've got a really good team for that situation.
Wout van Aert leading up. Jonas Vingegaard.
But Robbie's right. 3 minutes, a crosswind and a crash, and 3 minutes is nothing.